Hello, it's John Heaton, and this afternoon I'm going to tackle a topic which I've been meaning to do for quite a while. And what I'm going to do is pick 5 albums to play to the Martians. So, an imaginary visit from our friends from Mars, and this is what I'm going to play them. I mean, I could have picked. I mean, obviously, this is from my collection. It's biased. It's subjective. You guys want to come up with your alternative lists, and please go ahead. Please include your favourite groups or what you think would appeal to the Martians. Mine, as you'll see, is pretty heavily weighted towards my favourite artists and favourite period, but that's the way I am, and it's not likely to change anytime soon. That's not to say there's other albums which the Martians wouldn't thoroughly enjoy. But anyway, these are the ones I've picked. So when I was making the rules here, I was thinking what would be the most accessible to someone who wasn't familiar with Earth music or British music or American music. What would grab you? And I obviously took into account the fact that they're probably not going to speak English, so lyrics would be somewhat secondary, although maybe they would have subtitles or someone would translate it for them. So, for example, certain artists like Bob Dylan didn't make the cut just because of that, because I think the music for Martians needs to stand alone musically. Not that Dylan's doesn't, but more emphasis on how it sounds rather than what the message is. Not exclusively, as we'll see. Also, I figured it has to be uplifting and quite exciting music, melodic, well produced in a couple of cases here from what I've chosen, and I've cheekily rather included some sort of somewhat alien music, but as we'll see, we could have chosen the more alien choices from certain artists. So certain albums were bubbling under, like Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds was an obvious temptation to pick, but I didn't. Well, it'll probably spoil it for what I've included if I tell you what else is bubbling under, so I'll just go straight into the top 5, and in no particular order, in fact in chronological order of when they came out. I've picked Rubber Soul from the Beatles because I think to a newcomer to the Beatles or to pop music, this is the most accessible album. It's jam-packed full of absolutely memorable songs, and I don't think it's a coincidence that there were more songs from this album on the Red and the Blue compilations than from any other album. No less than 6. Drive My Car, Michelle, Norwegian Wood, Girl in My Life, and Nowhere Man. And I just think there's not a weak track on here, and you could make a strong case. One could make a strong case for this being the absolute peak of John Lennon's career in particular, with the others contributing very strongly. So Rubber Soul was my first choice. Obviously could have picked any number of the other albums from the Beatles, but that's the one I went for based on immediate appeal. From David Bowie, I've chosen Ziggy Stardust. No, I could have been cheeky and picked Low or Heroes, where the music is genuinely quite alien, but I guess the Martians would probably listen to that and think, well, we've done all this before. So Ziggy is a bit more of a commercial album. It's full of more classic pop songs, I think one would agree, and everything from Starman to Suffragette City to Hang On to Yourself, the title track, Soul Love, the beginning, the Armageddon song at the beginning, 5 years, just glorious. And okay, maybe one needs to understand the lyrics to get the message behind this album, but I think without the lyrics, just the sound of it is fabulous, and I think the Martians would be pretty impressed. Next we've got from the following, that was 72, following year 73, we've got the classic double album from Elton. Now, I was a bit unsure whether to include a double, but this album packs such a great punch and is so full of diverse, wonderful material from Elton with his lyricist Bernie Taupin that I just had to select it. And I think in particular side 1 is flawless, but then followed by the title track. That's a very strong first 20-25 minutes or so to the album, and then hardly lets up at all. In fact, rediscovers that kind of 5-star form throughout sides 3 and 4, and really hardly a weak song on the whole album, and just wonderfully produced by Gus Dudgeon. And yeah, so I picked this from Elton, and I could have picked Captain Fantastic or Honky Chateau, but I went for this one because I think it would impress the Martians just that little bit more. And the next one, I nearly picked ABBA Arrival, but to represent the kind of pop, the ultimate in pop music, I know Blondie probably wouldn't like to be called that, but this is the ultimate pop album in many respects, albeit with a bit of new wave edge to it. It's not just poppy. It's just so melodic. It's not even funny. And the good thing about this band is all six members contribute to the songwriting. And I've just chosen this because literally, I mean, already had 5 singles off it, and it could have had 6 or 7. It's that good an album. And crank it up loud. I think the Martians would be dancing in the aisles. And then to finish off, I nearly included a Stones album, Sticky Fingers, but I thought in the same vein, to represent the harder side of rock music, I've chosen this album from AC/DC, If You Want Blood, You've Got It, from '78, which was on the tour just after Powerage came out, I think, or maybe just before, the same year anyway. And very violent front and back cover. And this is like a greatest hits from AC/DC, and I was playing this the other night and cranked it up loud, and Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be is just one of their glorious older songs, well, not that old, from the previous year, '77. The Jack is from their first album, just brilliant, and Whole Lotta Rosie is from Let There Be Rock from '77. Rock and Roll Damnation was a single, not included on Powerage, but in Europe it was, but not in the UK. It was a standalone single. And then Let There Be Rock, High Voltage. The only slight weak spot on this album is Bad Boy Boogie, so the Martians can go to the bathroom during that song if they like. But I just think when you crank this up loud, the energy of this band, in particular of this lineup, with Bon Scott on vocal, Malcolm Young guitar, Angus Young guitar, Phil Rudd on drums, Cliff Williams on bass, is just absolutely brilliant. So I'm imagining a massive Martian delegates conference, a bit like the Sycorax conference in Doctor Who, the David Tennant's debut, if you remember that, if you watched Doctor Who. So imagine 2,000 Martian delegates, and they're in the middle of some conference discussing various topics, and one of the items on the agenda is music from the planet Earth, and so they select a kind of EP selection of songs, and they play it to the delegates at full volume. And I've chosen that little section to open with Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding from Elton, and then going into Heart of Glass from Blondie, and then In My Life from the Beatles, Hang On to Yourself from Bowie, and finishing off with Rock and Roll Damnation, played extremely loud by AC/DC. And I think the Martians there'd be a standing ovation at the end of that, and this is the ticket I came up with for an imaginary concert in Mars to celebrate the music from the planet Earth, the people who'd returned from Earth with the selections that I've just given them, or maybe you, and armed with the selections that other people have given them. And is there life on Mars? Well, of course there is. If you've watched the Ice Warriors, Doctor Who, you'll know that the Ice Warriors come from Mars. So this particular concert is going to be held at the Ice Warrior Command Centre on Friday the 1st of April. And it's going to feature the Beatles, Bowie, Elton, Blondie, and AC/DC. So that was just a bit of fun I had. Let me know your comments, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.